If you are a Gemini woman that have been going through midlife shift, whether it's sun sign, moon sign, or rising sign, especially the one that have spent years balancing work, relationships, family responsibility, and everybody's else expectations, well, you might have been noticing something lately. You are getting tired, not physically tired, but emotionally and mentally tired. Well, what are you tired from? Tired from conversations that goes nowhere. Tired of explaining what you already know is deep inside or what's already obvious. Tired of carrying emotional and mental weight of constantly trying to work things through. Maybe what's exhausting you the most is realizing how long have you been mentally engaged in situations that had already shown you exactly where they were. Because Gemini women don't usually leave immediately. Gemini women try first to explain, to understand, to re-explain again, to re-explain it differently, to look at it from a different angle, and also to try one more last conversation. That's the normal with Gemini. But because Gemini naturally believes that clarity can change everything, if people understand each other, that what Gemini believes, then things can improve. Well, something shifts in midlife. What is it? You begin to realize that not everything needs more analysis. Not every relationship can improve with more communication. And not every person is trying to understand you in the first place. Now, that realization is shocking for Gemini because suddenly you see how much mental energy was spent revisiting situation your intuition already understands years ago. There is an awakening happening here. You are no longer exhausted from doing too much. You're exhausted from over engaging mentally with things that were already very clear to you. Midlife changes the relationship to the mind because around midlife, something begins to shift psychologically and emotionally. For many women, you start to realize that constant mental engagement is exhausting. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs another explanation. And clarity does not require endless processing. So for Gemini women, this shift especially profound. Why? Because Gemini naturally lives through their mind. Earlier in life, your instinct was understand more, explain more, communicate more. But midlife, Gemini begin to recognize something deeper. Now, sometimes you already understand the situation from the first time. And what kept you stuck was not the confusion. It was the hope that more conversation and more communication could change the outcome. That realization changes your relationship to everything, your relationship to your one on one relationship, your family dynamics, your work environments, your friendships, even the way you speak to yourself. Now, because you clearly see a pattern, it becomes much harder for you to keep participating in it unconsciously. If you are a Gemini in midlife, the astrology right now, the planetary transitions explains it all. Right now we have Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto in Aquarius is transforming the collective relationship to truth, communication, and awareness. And Gemini, especially Gemini women, this could feel like craving depth instead of service relationship and interactions. You want more meaningful conversations instead of just constant noise around you, becoming more selective with where your attention goes. At the same time, we also have Uranus in Gemini, your sign. And what does that mean? It accelerates the mental perception. So not in a dramatic way, but in a very real psychological way. Your tolerance for repetitive dynamic decreases. Your nervous system processes information faster. You recognize emotional patterns earlier. And also, you might mentally arrive at conclusions much quicker than you once did before. Now, that can feel a little bit isolating at the beginning, but internally, you might already feel that you are already complete with the situation. Not everybody around you is still trying to process what you already have accepted emotionally. There is another planetary transit happening right now. We've got Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter in Cancer helps you to feel what you already know on a mental level. One of the biggest changes happening right now is the emotional honesty. Jupiter in Cancer softens this Gemini tendency to stay in analysis. Now, it's not just I understand the situation, it's also becomes like I understand it and I can feel it no longer aligns with me. Now that changes everything because earlier in life, Gemini women would stay mentally engaged long after emotionally disconnecting. But right now, with midlife and with the transitions that's happening, you could continue discussing, analyzing, explaining, revisiting, trying to improve the communication, but internally you already know that something has shifted and changed. Your emotional truth arrives much faster. And once that happens, it becomes very difficult for you to over-explain yourself, to over-analyze, to over-function emotionally, and try to overanalyze the situations. You feel it's difficult to stay mentally attached to conversations that already feel complete internally for you. Now, why this hits women in midlife so deeply? Because midlife women, they spend decades trying to accommodate everybody else's needs, trying to stay emotionally available for everybody, trying to adapt professionally, try to carry invisible emotional labor, constantly responding instead of reflecting. Eventually, the nervous system starts asking for something different because now it needs less noise, less emotional management, and less mental clutter. Not because you care less, but because you finally understand that cost of constantly giving your mind away. And Gemini women over experience this not as a withdrawal, but as a refinement. As a result, you become more intentional with your attention. Where are you giving your attention, your conversations, your energy, your emotional energy, and the people that have access to your mind? Now, there's another shift that's happening. Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries earlier this year. And with these two planets, first of all, Saturn, you actually start asking yourself what deserves your energy now. With Neptune, it dissolves the habit of overthinking or over analyzing and overextending your energy mentally. Now, together, these two transits begin to strip away the version of Gemini that stayed mentally engaged in conversations out of habit or guilt or emotional responsibility. What remains is clearer thinking, stronger boundaries, more intentional communication, and deeper self-trust. A healthier relationship with your own mind first. Now, the Gemini midlife awakening, the truth about it is that Gemini women rarely struggle with perception. They know. The issue is they struggle with staying mentally connected long after clarity has already arrived. And midlife teaches us something new, which is you do not need to keep revisiting a truth you already understand. And for Gemini especially, that becomes one of the most liberating realization of this chapter in your life. Now, if you have been lately feeling that you are craving more silence, you're protecting your mental space, you are less interested in repeating conversations and recognizing the patterns in those conversations much earlier, emotionally complete. Also, if you have been feeling emotionally complete with situation before they officially end, you are not being disconnected. You are becoming more honest with yourself. And it's also about finally trusting your mind, your body, and the intuition that you already know. If this message resonates with you, if you recognize yourself somewhere in this Gemini midlife awakening, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. What conversations, relationships, or situation that you no longer mentally carry the way you used to? And if you're enjoying this series on Midlife Awakening by Zodiac Sign, please make sure to subscribe and like and turn on the notifications so you might not miss the next signs in the series. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing this space with me and allowing these conversations to unfold with honesty and depth. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.